What could a forgotten war veteran possibly offer to a galaxy that had moved on? The question hung in the stale air of Military Surplus Store number 42 on Frontier Station 7. K9 Unit Sergeant Orion sat motionless in his reinforced display cage. His once gleaming combat implants now looked dull under the flickering blue lights. Gray patches spread across his muzzle where black fur had once been. "Look at that old model," a man in a crisp corporate uniform said, pointing at Orion. "Those neural links are at least 15 years outdated." His companion laughed. "Probably can't even sync with modern tactical systems anymore." Orion's ears twitched slightly. His enhanced hearing caught every word, just as it had caught the screams of soldiers during the TerraStrike Wars. The shop owner Dex shuffled over and tapped the price display. "Marked him down again today. Need the cage space for the new shipment coming in next week." The digital price counter dropped another 20%. Third time this month. Across the shop, Lucy Reeves pressed her face against a display case of miniature hover drones. Her small hands clutched a clear card containing her savings. 3 months of chores and errands run for neighbors in the residential sector. Her mother had promised she could buy something small while she finished her engineering shift. "Don't touch anything expensive," her mother had warned before disappearing into the station's maintenance tunnels. Lucy moved between the crowded aisles, past racks of surplus combat gear and bins of outdated tech parts. The shop smelled like metal polish and synthetic oil. She stopped when she reached the back wall. Orion's amber eyes locked onto hers. "Is he real?" Lucy asked, stepping closer to the cage. Dex snorted. "Real enough. Combat-enhanced K9 unit. Served in 3 major campaigns during the TerraStrike Wars." "Why is nobody buying him?" "Because nobody wants outdated war tech, kid. Those new synthetic units have triple the processing power and none of the attitude problems." Lucy moved closer. Orion's eyes tracked her, alert despite his still posture. A small red light blinked on the neural port behind his left ear. "What can he do?" she asked. "Combat tracking, perimeter security, tactical support. Standard military package from 15 years ago." Dex waved dismissively. "Look, unless your parents are collectors, you should check out the toy section." Lucy ignored him. She placed her hand against the transparent barrier. Orion's nose twitched. The station's public address system crackled suddenly. "Attention all personnel. Unscheduled ships approaching Docking Bay 7. Security teams to positions." Dex frowned. "That's weird. We're not expecting any." The lights cut out. Emergency red strips activated along the floor edges. A siren began to wail. "Perimeter breach in sectors 3 through 7, announced a mechanical voice. "This is not a drill. All civilians proceed to designated shelter areas." People rushed toward the exit. Lucy stood frozen, her hands still pressed against Orion's cage. The shop shuddered. Distant explosions vibrated through the floor plates. "I need to find my mom," Lucy whispered. Orion stood up in his cage for the first time. His muscles tensed beneath his aging frame. The red light behind his ear began blinking faster. "How much?" Lucy asked, turning to Dex, who was frantically locking display cases. "What? Kid, we need to get to the shelters now." "How much for the war dog?" Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Alarms blared from multiple directions. "Take him. Just take the damn thing and go," Dex shouted, tossing her a small activation key. As Lucy unlocked the cage, Orion's eyes flashed with something that looked almost like purpose. Lucy's hands shook as she pressed the activation key against the neural port behind Orion's ear. The red light changed to green. The cage door slid open with a metallic hiss. Orion stepped out slowly. His paws made soft clicks against the metal floor. He stood taller than Lucy had expected, his shoulders reaching her chest. Up close, she could see the faint glow of circuitry beneath his skin. Warning, hull breach detected in Sector 4, announced the station AI. All personnel evacuate immediately. Orion moved to the shop entrance. His nose twitched as he sniffed the air. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Lucy followed him to the door. What is it? The corridor outside was chaos. People ran in all directions. Emergency lights pulsed red along the walls. He was already moving, darting between the raider's legs, biting and slashing with unexpected speed. Lucy backed away, then turned and ran toward the maintenance passage Orion had indicated. The sounds of struggle followed her. Lucy gasped and started forward. Orion blocked her path with his body, pushing her back into the shadows of the maintenance passage. "But that's my mom," Lucy whispered, her voice breaking. Orion's ears flattened against his head. He nudged Lucy deeper into the passage, away from the open door. The wound on his flank still leaked fluid, leaving small dark spots on the metal floor. The raiders marched the captured engineers down the corridor. Lucy's mother stumbled as one of the armored figures shoved her forward. Her work uniform was torn at the shoulder. A thin line of blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. "Move faster," a raider ordered. "Commander wants the research sector secured within the hour." Lucy bit her lip to keep from calling out. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. Orion watched her, then turned his attention back to the raiders. His targeting display flickered to life again, marking each armored figure with a red outline. When the group disappeared around a corner, Orion moved to a small access panel in the wall. He pressed his nose against it. The panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel barely big enough for Lucy to crawl through. "You want me to go in there?" Lucy asked. Orion nudged her hand with his muzzle. The neural port behind his ear flashed in a pattern. Lucy hesitated, then dropped to her hands and knees. The tunnel smelled like metal and dust. Pipes ran along the sides, warm to the touch. She crawled forward, feeling Orion follow close behind. The tunnel branched several times. At each junction, Orion would move ahead, indicating which way to go with a soft nudge. The sounds of the station grew distant, the alarms muffled, the shouting barely audible. After what felt like hours of crawling, they reached another panel. Orion pressed against it, and it slid open. They emerged into a small control room filled with screens and blinking consoles. The room was empty, but signs of a struggle were everywhere. Chairs overturned, a coffee cup shattered on the floor, a smear of blood on one console. "Where are we?" Lucy asked, standing up and brushing dust from her clothes. Orion moved to a central console. His targeting display projected onto the screen, showing a map of the station. Red dots moved through various sectors' radars. A cluster of blue dots showed where station personnel were being held. One section of the map flashed urgently, the research sector. Lucy leaned closer. "They're taking Mom and the other engineers there. But why?" Orion pressed his paw against another part of the console. A video feed appeared on the screen. It showed a large circular room with a device in the center, something that looked like a massive cannon, but unlike any weapon Lucy had ever seen. "Is that what they want?" Lucy asked. The door to the control room slid open. Lucy spun around, heart pounding. A station security officer stood in the doorway, weapon raised. His uniform was torn and dirty. Blood stained one sleeve. "Step away from the console, kid," he ordered. His eyes narrowed when he saw Orion. "And what the hell is that thing?" Orion growled, positioning himself between Lucy and the officer. His targeting display locked onto the man's chest. "Wait," Lucy said, raising her hands. "He's helping me." "The raiders took my mom and the other engineers to the research sector." The officer kept his weapon pointed at Orion. "That's an outdated K-9 unit. Those things are dangerous and unreliable. It should have been decommissioned years ago." Orion's growl deepened. The lights along his spine pulsed faster. "He saved my life," Lucy insisted. "And he knows how to move through the station without the raiders seeing us." The officer hesitated. Behind him, distant weapons fire echoed through the corridors. The station shuddered as another explosion hit somewhere far away. "We need to warn command about what the raiders are after," the officer said finally, lowering his weapon slightly. "But communications are down across all sectors." Orion turned back to the console. His neural port flashed rapidly as he interfaced with the system. A new screen appeared, showing old emergency channels that hadn't been used since the Centauri Wars. The officer's eyes widened. "Those channels aren't even in our current systems. How does it know about them?" Before Lucy could answer, a loud bang shook the door. Someone was trying to break in. The door shuddered under another heavy blow. Metal groaned against metal. "Back door!" the officer shouted, pointing to a small hatch on the far wall. "Now!" Lucy ran to the hatch while Orion stayed at the console, his paws moving rapidly across the controls. The targeting display projected a message onto the screen. "Emergency channel active." "What is he doing?" the officer asked, backing toward the hatch with his weapon aimed at the main door. "I think he's sending a message," Lucy said. She pulled the hatch open. It led to another maintenance tunnel, narrower than the last. The main door buckled inward. A metal bar pushed through the gap, forcing it wider. Orion finished at the console and bounded across the room. He pushed Lucy into the tunnel, then turned back toward the door. "He's coming with us," Lucy insisted, grabbing at Orion's fur. The officer hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I go first," He crawled into the tunnel. Lucy followed, with Orion bringing up the rear. Behind them, the control room door finally gave way. Angry shouts echoed through the tunnel as raiders discovered the empty room. They crawled for several minutes, the tunnel sloping downward. The air grew colder. Pipes hissed with pressure above their heads. The officer stopped at a junction and checked a small device on his wrist. "We're below the main habitat ring now," he whispered. Near the old storage sectors, a distant boom shook the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They're breaking into more sections," the officer said. "We need to reach command." Orion pushed past Lucy, nudging the officer aside. He led them down a different path than the officer had indicated. "Hey!" the officer protested. "Command is the other way." Orion ignored him, continuing down the tunnel. His targeting display projected briefly on the wall, showing a different route. "I think he knows something we don't," Lucy said, following Orion. The officer cursed under his breath, but followed. The tunnel eventually opened into a large storage bay. Crates were stacked to the ceiling, many covered in dust. The room was dimly lit by emergency lights. "This is Supply Depot 12, the officer said, looking around. "It's been abandoned for years." Orion moved to a specific crate and scratched at it. The targeting display projected onto the crate's surface, highlighting a serial number. "What's in there?" Lucy asked. The officer checked the number. His eyes widened. "Military-grade communication equipment from the Centauri Wars. It should still work, even with the main systems down." They pried open the crate. Inside was a compact device with multiple antennas and an old-style control panel. The officer pulled it out, blowing dust from the surface. "This might actually work," he admitted. "But we need more people." "A resistance force." Orion's ears perked up. He moved to another section of the storage bay and scratched at the floor. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a weapons cache. "How did he know about that?" the officer asked, stunned. Lucy knelt beside Orion, noticing a small insignia on his collar that matched a symbol on the weapons cache. "I think he was stationed here. During the wars." The officer activated the communication device. It hummed to life, lights blinking across its surface. "This is Security Officer Pike. Any station personnel receiving this, respond." Static crackled, then a voice came through. "This is Medical Bay 3. We're barricaded in with about 20 civilians." Raiders tried to break in twice. More responses followed, small groups of survivors hidden throughout the station. The officer quickly explained their situation and the location of the storage bay. "We need to form a resistance," he told them. "The raiders are after something in the research sector." Lucy watched as Orion interfaced with the communication device. His targeting display projected a detailed map of the station, showing safe routes between survivor locations. "The dog knows the station better than our current maps," Officer Pike admitted grudgingly. A new voice broke through on the communication device. "This is Station Commander Voss, who authorized the use of this emergency channel." Pike explained the situation quickly. "Hold position," Commander Voss ordered. "I'm sending a team to your location." Orion suddenly stiffened. His ears rotated toward the main entrance. The targeting display shifted, highlighting movement beyond the doors. "Someone's coming," Lucy whispered. The storage bay doors slid open. Everyone froze. A group of raiders stood in the doorway, weapons raised. Behind them stood Lucy's mother, her hands bound, her face pale with fear. "Lucy?" she gasped. "Mom!" Lucy started forward, but Officer Pike grabbed her arm. "Stay back," he warned, raising his weapon toward the raiders. The lead raider pushed Lucy's mother forward. The engineer was right. "They are using old communication channels." He aimed his weapon at Pike. "Drop it." Pike hesitated, his finger on the trigger. "Please," Lucy's mother begged. "They'll kill her." Pike lowered his weapon slowly. One of the raiders stepped forward to take it. Orion remained perfectly still, his targeting display inactive. To the raiders, he might have looked like nothing more than an old pet. His eyes, however, tracked every movement in the room. "The commander wants all of you in the research sector," the lead raider said, "especially the girl. The engineer works better with motivation." Lucy's mother looked at Orion for the first time. Recognition flashed across her face. "That's a K-9 unit, from the war." The lead raider glanced at Orion dismissively. "That old thing? Probably can't even run its basic protocols anymore." Lucy caught her mother's gaze. A silent message passed between them. Her mother's eyes flicked toward the communication device, then back to Orion. "Move," the raider ordered, gesturing with his weapon. "All of you." As they were marched toward the door, Lucy's mother stumbled, falling against the communication device. Her bound hands hit several controls before the raiders pulled her up roughly. "Careful with the equipment," Pike snapped, playing along. "Some of this stuff is unstable." The raiders led them through the station's corridors. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. They passed signs of fighting, scorch marks on walls, broken equipment, bloodstains on the floor. Lucy walked beside Orion, her hand resting lightly on his back. She could feel his muscles tensing, ready to move. They reached the research sector. The massive weapon Lucy had seen on the screen dominated the central chamber. Engineers worked on it under guard, connecting cables and adjusting components. "What is that thing?" Pike asked. "Planetary defense cannon," Lucy's mother answered before the raiders could stop her. "But they've modified it to target specific frequencies. It could disable every ship in the system with one shot." The lead raider pushed her forward. "Finish the calibration. Now." Lucy noticed something strange. The lights in the research sector were flickering in a pattern. Not random power failures, but a deliberate sequence. The same pattern Orion's neural port had been flashing earlier. Orion's targeting display suddenly activated, projecting onto the floor for just a second. The station's power cut completely. Darkness engulfed them. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, but the raiders' helmet systems remained dark. They were blind. "Now!" Pike shouted. Orion leaped into action, a blur of movement in the dim light. His targeting display guided him perfectly as he attacked the nearest raider, clamping powerful jaws around the weapon arm. From all around the research sector, panels opened in the walls and ceiling. Station security forces emerged, weapons ready. They had used the old maintenance tunnels, the same ones Orion had shown them. "Station security, drop your weapons." Commander Voss's voice boomed through a speaker. Chaos erupted. Raiders fired blindly. Security forces returned fire with precise shots. Lucy ducked behind a console, pulling her mother down with her. "How did you know?" Lucy asked, cutting her mother's bonds with a piece of broken metal. "I recognized the K-9 unit," her mother said. "He was stationed here during the war. I helped design his neural interface." A massive explosion shook the station. The modified cannon had been hit in the crossfire. Sparks flew from its control panels. "It's going to overload," Lucy's mother shouted. "Everyone out!" People ran for the exits. Lucy looked for Orion, but couldn't see him in the confusion. "Orion!" she called. Through the smoke and chaos, she spotted him. He was at the cannon's main control panel, his neural port connected to the system. His targeting display showed a complex sequence of commands. "He's trying to shut it down," Lucy's mother realized. But the feedback could fry his systems. Lucy ran toward him, ignoring her mother's shouts to come back. The cannon hummed louder, energy building to dangerous levels. Orion's eyes met Lucy's as she reached him. For a moment, they held each other's gaze. Then he completed the shutdown sequence. The cannon powered down. The humming stopped. But Orion collapsed, his targeting display flickering and fading. Lucy dropped to her knees beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Please don't die," she whispered, placing her hand on his still form. The neural port behind his ear gave one final flash, then went dark.